Another very hot day in the Vuelta a España, with Primoz Roglic being caught up in a crash once again, but one seemingly of no consequence. Stage 12 from Jaén to Córdoba. It is a stage for the climby sprinty boys. A flat finish after a descent and like false flat descent. Quick run in, but there's two major climbs of the day, which are about 5Ks at 7%, but there's steeper sections in there of 2Ks, 9.5%. Magnus Cort strong yesterday, certainly a candidate for the stage, as well as Matteo Trentin for UAE, who's been doing lead-outs for Milano in the pure sprint stages. And once again, there was an almighty fight for the breakaway. Seboic, who eventually got in that breakaway, said it took nearly over 2 hours of fighting to get in that break, and still with 85Ks to go, there were riders trying to bridge into his group of three with Etúria and Sander Armey. Eventually the peloton relented and we had a large break with Maxim van Gils, Berwick, Bol, Etúria and Mesquita, Stander Wolf, but no one of the caliber of, say, Magnus Cort or Michael Matthews. And it was UAE, Team Emirates, not BikeExchange, who were pacing all day. They were on the pedals, keeping the gap very, very tight. And I guess the reason for that is they're wanting to make sure they can keep the effort smooth. For Matteo Trentin, they don't have to do a mad dash at the end. And because they kept that gap so tight, apparently Chad Hager just decided to let up for DSM, or got the call from the car on that first longer climb, which isn't actually 10Ks long. It's like a 5K climbing section, and then the rest is like a false flat ridge line. And once again, proof, 36, 38 degrees today. You see Berg throwing water over himself. The extreme weather protocol only applies in respect of cold conditions, never in hot conditions, even though exercising at up to 40 degrees, in my opinion, is a little bit dicey. There was a crash with 54Ks to go, the one I referred to at the start. I think Dylan Van Baarle might have slid out at the front, and it took out Nelson Oliveira, who seemed to get caught up in a wire fence, unfortunately. He was able to continue, and Primoz Roglic was caught up. His whole team, who also half of them's crashed, but no one seemed to be too injured, thankfully, were caught up with him, and they had to wend their way through the cars, then through the groups of riders who were getting dropped on this first climb. Maybe it helped to have riders to chase up that climb. But the breakaways gap was down to 27 seconds with 30.7 kilometers to go. It's looking good for odd Christian Eiking in the red jersey. Not a particularly dangerous finish for him. And UAE Team Emirates were taking up upon themselves to do all the work today for Matteo Trentin, despite Matthews really being quicker than Matteo Trentin on a finish like this. Maybe they thought they could put Matthews under pressure on the climb. And into that last climb we went. The breakaway starting to disintegrate. Van Gils, the last rider to attack out of that group, but he was pretty much done for. Reeled in halfway up the climb by UAE, steadily pacing. But the problem for them is it wasn't quick enough to stop attacks from some of the better climbers, like you see here Giulio Ciccone with Jay Vine on his wheel, Romain Bardet bridging across to them, as well as Henao later. And that's the difficulty with controlling a parkour like this for a team like BikeExchange or UAE for Matthews and Trentin. You don't want to go overboard chasing these climbers back, because you might put your own sprinter over the limit, or they're already at the back and you can't move up and start hard pacing whilst these guys are up the road or on the descent. So that group of Vine, Bardet and Ciccone got 30 seconds, because you see at the front is Caruso and Haig. They don't care about the break at all. It's not a stage for them. And so yeah, that gap went out to 37 seconds before BikeExchange were even able to get on the front and start bringing it back. On the descent though, it was Vine doing most of the work. Bardet and Ciccone weren't looking too crash hot in the finale, and it was BikeExchange who ripped this gap to shreds in the flat run into the finish, bringing back like 10 seconds a kilometer, timing it perfectly to bring back the last man, Jay Vine, with 800 meters to go. Maybe not perfectly, because you see the last man for BikeExchange, Luka Mezgec, on the front. He can't do a proper lead out for Michael Matthews at this point if he's already at the front here. He's got Trentin behind them, and Trentin kind of cost his chances when he panicked on the descent and it looked like he tried to bridge across to the break of climbers himself. And the man in the perfect position with, I'm not going to say a fresh, but not having been lent on too much at this point, Jens Kukulera for Magnus Cort is fourth wheel behind Mezgec, Matthews and Trentin. And if you look closely, he's going to slap his thigh to tell Magnus Cort, get on my wheel, I'm about to surge past Mezgec and Michael Matthews with about 450 meters to go, because Mezgec has been on the front for so long. He's absolutely cooked. You see he can't react to the change of pace from Jens Kuckelera, and it's Bagioli on Magnus Cort's wheel, the young quick-step rider, and at this point Matthews has to get onto Bagioli's wheel. Now perhaps Tuschveld, the DSM rider, didn't allow him on it. I don't know, maybe he couldn't get onto Bagioli's wheel. The camera changes angle straight away, but it seems like he leans on Mezgec in the last 400 to try and close it for him, and he can't. And so a gap opens up and Mezgec is cooked. And so Matthews has to begin closing in the wind with 350 meters to go. He's basically sprinting now in the wind whilst Kuckelera is finishing his lead out for Magnus Cort, who opens up with about 200 meters to go. He gaps Bagioli off the wheel when he initially kicks, and despite winning the hilltop finish on stage 6, nearly winning the punchy finish to Valdepeñas to Jaén yesterday, Magnus Cort, who came third in a pure bunch sprint on stage 4, beats Andrea Bagioli by about a wheel length, taking his second stage win of this year's Vuelta a España, and now has the most Grand Tour stage victories, I believe, of any Danish rider ever. He's on incredible form, one of the most versatile riders in the Peloton, and that's one of the best leadouts I've seen from one man this year by Jens Kuckelera. But Magnus Cort wins the stage ahead of Bagioli, Matthews, Trentin, Andreas Krohn, who would have been very good from a break today, Gross, Schartner, Soto, Rue, Brambilla, and Tuschveld. Tomorrow's stage looks like one of the last pure bunch sprint opportunities at the Vuelta this year. Jakobsen with no Philipsen here will be the heavy favourite, one would think, particularly with Demar not having a lead-out man. But with the way he's going, maybe Magnus Cort can even win tomorrow if he times it right. He came third behind Jakobsen last week. Here's what the Dane had to say after the stage.
Like we talked about in the team, where we wouldn't do the big bunch sprints, but when the group were reduced, we believed in me, and the team wants to support me in these type of stages, and they did amazing today. The whole team did a great job, and today I was able to sit in the back, relax for the first many hours while people were fighting for the breakaway. And even though I felt the legs a little bit from yesterday, I managed to get over the two climbs, and in the end, Jens Kuckelera, he did a very amazing job delivering me perfectly for the sprint.
This is your 5th victory at La Vuelta. You realize you are becoming a big name of this race?
Yeah, it's super nice, and I also see I get more and more Spanish fans, I think, after the long day yesterday in the breakaway. Even though I didn't win, I really had a lot of messages from people, and that's super nice to see that.
But I hope you enjoyed the recap. Let me know down below, were you surprised UAE took it upon themselves to pace all day for Trentin, who I like as a rider, but he's really not shown that would be an out-and-out favourite in a reduced bunch sprint, even against the likes of Magnus Cort and Matthews. But otherwise, hope you're well, and I'll see you with the recap tomorrow. Ciao.